Epicseven had an absolutely insane amount of teasers, reveals, and updates announced in today's livestream, and with this today, I'll be breaking down and covering everything that you missed. Without further ado though, let's get straight into it. Now, to start things off, we have roughly 14 minutes where they started talking about some of the details about the story. Now, to be clear, the new story is going to be set during the First Era, before Roz existed, and this will focus on Kain, Uncharted pioneer Politis, and Lisette. New characters. Kain is Kayron before he became an acolyte, and Lisette is a fragment, or I guess basically an avatar of Dish, which is pretty cool looking, honestly. Now, on that note, Lisette is a new light soul weaver who's built actually around Revival. Now, her design and kit in general already looks pretty cool. However, what we're seeing specifically, or what we saw, was not just a couple of details about her, including her reveal and story, but also some of her kit and animations. Now, to be clear, the way that her kit works, briefly, is that she starts the battle with 4 divinity stacks. However, when an ally dies, she can consume a divinity in order to revive them as a fragment of life. Now, again, this is pretty insane because this fragment of life can't take damage, and while this is going on, her S3 fully heals the team, gives increased speed, and can also grant time revival, which then allows allies to return to their state from the start of battle, which is something that you might have seen on, I believe it's one of the Rose or ML Roses, but it wasn't super effective, and it was kind of niche or not very effective, to be honest. Now, that said, Lisette is coming to the banner on the 27th, which is huge, but the next character that we had was actually Politis, another character that I think many of you are probably going to be super excited for. Now, personally, I found Politis to be probably one of the coolest characters from the reveal and live stream. She's a 5-star Ice Ranger. I'll go a bit more into her or in depth with her for like a separate video, but her role changes and what she does literally is dependent on where you place her on the board tile-wise. If you place her in the front row, this gives her an offensive mission, and this will increase the attack of your team. If you put her in the back though, she accepts a defensive mission and instead increases max HP. Completing either of these missions though will give the team a major additional damage buff and gives Politis another turn. But she's also a very utility heavy AoE kit in general, or has one rather, and it of course has buff dispels, cooldown reduction, or rather cooldown increase, and additional damage, and this banner will start on September 3rd. Now, we also have Kain, of course. Kain looks pretty cool. You might have seen it a bit already, and from what we've seen at the moment, it kind of looks like he has what, of course, Roz had, or something that Roz would wear, equipped at the moment. To be clear though, you don't summon for this character, though they will be playable during the new story. Now, the next thing that I actually wanted to touch on, or something that they mentioned, was the quality of life. Now, one of the biggest changes that they mentioned actually with the update is the improvement, I guess, of background battling. This is more like a huge change rather than an improvement though. To start things off with background battling in terms of its change though, this now allows you to completely close the game and farming will continue, which is something that you've definitely seen from other titles for sure. This can also use up to 100 leaves at once, and this of course is roughly 400 hunt runs, which is pretty crazy. Farming time though is based on your fastest recorded clear, which is also pretty nice, though honestly building a team isn't super difficult in this day and age. But alongside this, you also have auto sell and auto extract, 100 free leaves, and the equipment enhancement stone payback event, which is separate from the 100 leaves that they'll be giving to us, but rather this is something that will start on August 27th, last for 3 weeks, and a portion of the enhancement EXP used on equipment will then be returned through enhancement stone selection chests. Now, there is another thing that we need to talk about actually, and that's actually in regards to a hunt. Now, this isn't technically a hunt, but rather Ogre's Armory. This is now being revamped though into Ogre Hunt. With this, you'll be able to farm for Pursuit, Reversal, Warfare, and Riposte, and they're also preparing a system where as more sets are being added, players will be able to directly select which set that they want to farm. Now, Rift is also getting changed though, and it's pretty relevant. To be clear though, the start of this is going to be a closing of Rift temporarily, starting from August 27th, again, while it's being changed. The developers do want to basically move this away from being the de facto or the second farming mode that people kind of have to decide between, as again, it kind of feels weird now with the otherworldly hunt runs to really decide what's important and what's not. The goal, though, is to rebuild Rift around its own unique challenge and combat experience. So I think in the future, it might be something similar to what you put in something like a Tower of Trial, or rather into the weekly activity, the sort of Hall of Trials-esque activities, but we'll see. Now, they've also made improvements to player cards, or rather the profile cards in general, which is pretty nice. Personally, I still feel like they should just change when profile cards are being thrown out and sent or showcased, and it would make life easier. But even that being said, there's now been an increase in the layer limit from 100 to 130. There's new colors and shapes. Existing emojis or emotes can now be used when designing cards. Layers can now be grouped, moved, and locked together. Exact position values can now be entered, which is huge in terms of preciseness. Card slots have increased from 5 to 10. Again, just so many changes. One of the most notable, though, I do think, is that you can now gift your profile card to friends, which is something that it felt like a lot of creators were struggling with, because if you just wanted a very specific card, or rather, I guess if you wanted a specific sort of design, you basically had to follow a tutorial or be very gifted yourself, and that necessarily doesn't have to be the case anymore. Now, let's actually move to something, or rather a new mode that they added, which is called Call of Chaos. This is faster, more arcade PvP based with a simplified draft. The battles are 3 versus 3. The initial 3 heroes that you get are selected randomly with an option to reroll, but the drafting is intended to take roughly 1 minute before each team is then given a guardian positioned in the back. Now, during battle, though, it is also worth mentioning that you could choose between 3 fates. Between these, you can do something like buff your team, debuff the enemy, or change your hero's skills. A run can end, though, obviously, when you reach 7 wins or 3 losses. And though, again, this isn't super obvious, this feels a lot similar to what Chaos Zero Nightmare has done too, which may be something that people feel a bit more reminiscent of, or quite strongly towards. Now, again, I do want to mention that winning, of course, does reward you with more, as is nature and is natural. But then, actually, we should talk about the collaboration that we have with Chaos Zero Nightmare. Now, this collab begins in September, and it will feature Rinoa, Haru, and Mei Lin. This is pretty cool, again, as Mei Lin is definitely one of the more iconic characters in the title. But, to be clear, Rinoa will be a Moonlight character and obtainable for free. Haru and Mei Lin, by contrast, will be limited summon characters. And if the collaboration does well, I guess the devs said that they'll be doing reruns or asking for additional CZN characters in the future, which I do think is kind of like Smilegate's 300 IQ sort of plan, but it is what it is. Okay, moving along, though, we have Dimensional Exploration, and this is a new piece of seasonal content. This is more of a roguelike than anything else, and again, this is supposed to be connected to the CZN collab. Now, again, this specific iteration is going to be explored and worked upon in the future, though. But as it stands right now, there is no cost, or rather a cost of energy to do this, or another entry currency. You can retry as much as you want, and you can also retry, or rather, I should say, your existing progression will carry over. Now, you don't also necessarily have to own some of these characters, as characters that you don't own will appear as support heroes. And roguelike runs will include the likes, again, of beetles, shops, event supplies, spam artifact, etc. Now, in terms of the tag system, you can now place up to 3 additional heroes while placed in reserve, and you can swap them out during combat specifically. Now, this does allow you, again, to use a lot of different characters, but for some advice, runs contain 3 floors with bosses. Runs also depend on how you progress in general. Currency from runs can also be used to upgrade Watch Shuri's spaceship and research. But these upgrades also make future runs much more difficult, or rather I should say stronger, while also giving access to higher levels. Now, we should also move to the more prominent or eye visually catchy thing here, which is the Moon Bunny, or rather the Majestic Bunny skins. Now, despite all that you might have thought, this is also a bit of a confusing moment for me too. Again, Moon Bunny is a character that will have, or rather I should say, more bunny characters in general are coming. These will not just include, again, the Luna that they talked about or the Empyrean Ilonov, which we had before, but not all of these are necessarily going to be skins. Some will be full out special different characters. Now, in terms of the hero popularity vote, the vote is still going on, but the hero who finishes number 1 will receive a new concept skin. And though it's been a while, Luna is still the character who is winning this. Overall, I was pretty impressed with the way that Luna looked. I'm a big fan. That's fine. Now, they also did announce Steam on, or for those of you that care for it like that, I would say that, again, Steam is fine, but if it works in a way such that you end up opening up the Haro launcher anyway, or rather, let me say, if you open up some sort of launcher in general after you've already, put something on Steam, it just doesn't feel like it would make much sense. So we'll have to see if Stove opens up again or something along those lines ends up happening. But at least for now, I'm pretty hopeful for this. There'll likely be some sort of collaboration or some sort of shop benefit to doing so. But again, wishlist milestones exist right now for unlocking additional rewards, which is what we know confirmed. E7's World Cup for 2026 has also been shown again. The preliminaries for such, I believe, are going to be around September 12th, which is pretty nice. Following this, though, will be the group stage and knockout, with the finals again being on November 28th. In terms of rewards, though, they actually did give out a whole lot. We're being given over 1,000. Yes, you heard that right. 1,000 free Covenant summons, which is pretty insane. This is blended over a period of 63 days, which is, I think, an unusually long amount. But in any case, I'm not really going to complain about free pulls. Now, overall, though, there are, of course, some other things to consider here, like getting the limited 5-star hero selector, artifact selector, the unknown Slade, bottle, mana control catalyst, Natalon, ML 5-star selector, things like this. But we're also being given a 20 speed ring, 80 golden transmit stones, 8 million gold, 80 greater and 10 lesser sort of charms. It's just overall, again, everything that we've seen from today's video was pretty exciting and pretty promising. Yes, I was honestly more of a fan of the skits they had going on because it was genuinely very funny. But overall, it seems like E7 is going in an absolutely insane direction. The fact that they're so willingly going to pair with, with CZN already to try and keep it afloat. It is what it is. Let's see how or what the future holds for E7 obviously Chaos Zero Nightmare. Thanks again for watching, though, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. I'll see you all next time. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.